Welcome to Living Rich, Syrup. This is the show where I help you find your truth and get back in touch with yourself. Find your North Star. Had to do it for myself when I fell flat on my face way back when. And today's episode is about that. It's about facing adversity. It's about what you do with opportunity when it approaches, when it comes up to you, and how you actually find opportunity and create it for yourself. And this story starts from my college days when I wanted to become the next David Letterman. I wanted to be a late night host. And so I went to New York and I applied for internships. I applied for an internship at the Rosie O'Donnell Show, and I got to go into 30 Rock, which I could not believe I was inside of. That's where Letterman used to do a show. SNL is done at 30 Rock. And I took the elevator up to the Rosie O'Donnell Show where I got an interview. Now, I had no idea what I was doing, so I went to TJ Maxx and I bought this full suit, and I had a briefcase as well. And inside of the briefcase, I think, was basically just my resume. So I went to the interview, and this young woman who was probably about my age sat down, and she looked at me, and she's like, "What is this?" And I had no idea. What do you mean, what is this? She said, "Why are you dressed like that?" And I said, "Well, I was always told to dress for the job that you want, not the job that you have," like an idiot. And she said, "Oh, I guess the job that you want is to work in an accounting firm." And instead of laughing and having fun with her, I completely turned red. All the blood drained out of my face, and the interview was over. Just like that, my trip to New York, my hopes and dreams of working in 30 Rock and becoming the next David Letterman, crushed. Literally 5 minutes earlier, they had me waiting outside, and I was standing in the SNL studio imagining myself on that stage someday saying, "I'm going to take this town by storm." But there is a saying in New York, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. And very quickly, I was slapped in the face with that saying. So I was escorted out of the building in my mind to never return again. And I took my $5 that I had, probably in that briefcase, and bought a hot dog and was sitting there. And somebody came up to me in my full suit and said, "Hey, do you want to go to see Conan O'Brien tonight? We just added a second show and we need audience members." So I said, "Of course, yeah." Instead of driving back, I went back into 30 Rock. I waited in line and I went to go see Conan O'Brien. Now I'm in Conan O'Brien dressed in a full suit. Conan O'Brien comes out to warm up the audience, and he sees a guy, not a guy, a kid, maybe 22, dressed in a full suit, and he starts teasing me. He calls me on stage. Now I'm dancing with Conan O'Brien on the stage as Max Weinberg is playing, and I'm becoming part of the show, not the actual show that's broadcast, but the pre-show. And I couldn't believe my luck. I went back to my audience seat. I watched the show and I said, "You know what? I can make it. I can do this." Even though I was just an audience member, look at what happened. Look at my turn of fortune. I went from never being able to go in that building again to dancing with Conan O'Brien. So that became my mission, to go back into that building. I eventually got an internship at a show for Fox called Fox After Breakfast. And I remember Who Wants to Be a Millionaire came to New York. Took New York by storm. And I had learned the lesson of, if you want something, you got to go for it. You got to take steps. So I started calling every day. Every day. "Hey, is there any job there for me? What can I do? I've worked in TV before. What can I?" And they just kept saying, "No, we're all staffed up. We're all staffed up." Finally, they got sick of me. And they said, we have a job for one day as the receptionist. You can work for one day as the receptionist. So I said, "All right, you know what? I'll take it. I'll take this job as the receptionist for one day." I quit a temp job where I was making good money for a 3-month gig to go and work as the receptionist for one day at Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And when I went in, they were doing the show. I saw the show on TV. Regis was hosting, and this charming British guy was the contestant. And they got to the part where they phone a friend, and my phone started ringing. Little did I know that was actually a rehearsal, and that British guy was the executive producer of the show. And I picked up the phone, and Regis was on the other end of the phone. Now, the question that was in play was a question about a philosopher called Martin Buber. And I knew nothing about trivia or philosophy or pretty much anything at that point. And Regis started screaming at me, "What do you know about Buber, kid? What do you know about Buber?" And I just said frantically, "I know nothing about Buber," and hung up the phone. Instead of being the phone friend, I just hung up the phone, and it became a big comedic bit. And people recognized me for that, and then came up to me, "That was so funny today." And I got asked back for a second day, and the second day became a week, and then a week became 2 weeks. And eventually, within 2 years, I had moved up to supervising producer, and within 3 years, I was the co-executive producer, and eventually I moved up to become the executive producer of the whole show just because I relentlessly called looking for a job and got a job for one day as the receptionist. Eventually, Meredith Vieira became the host of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. We became good friends. Meredith and I decided to go and do a talk show. She wanted to do a talk show for NBC. I had not been back to NBC since I had been at the Conan O'Brien show. Meredith and I both marched up to the elevator, went to the top floor. Scripts from Seinfeld are up there. Anything. It's like a museum, but you can touch everything. It's crazy. The top of the rock to meet the president of NBC and pitch the president of NBC because Meredith is a big deal and they want to roll out the red carpet for her. We sold a show to NBC at 30 Rock, where it all began. And then they told us we were going to be producing the show out of the same studio where I went to watch Conan O'Brien all those years ago. So I went to that studio when we were about to build our set, and I sat in the same seat I sat in an empty studio all by myself, about to build a set for a show that I was creating with Meredith and other people. And I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that I had gotten there. And this all came from an oversized suit and a briefcase with a resume and $5. That is why I think so often we hear the word no and we just think, well, that's it. Too bad. It's not it. It's you have to look for ways through things. You have to take adversity and look for opportunities. That is the key in life. I was talking to my son the other day and he was telling me how he was going to be rich. He's 15. And, on the internet now, there's just so much advice on how you can make all this money and how easy it is and how your parents are stupid and they don't know what they're doing. Some of it's probably not bad advice about, not always working for somebody, but they make it seem so easy that I think every young person thinks they're going to be rich. And so I said to him, hey, well, I thought you wanted to get a job this summer. What happened with that? He said, well, I went to 2 places and they won't hire anybody who's 15. And that was it. That is not it. That's never it. If you want something, you call that number over and over again until they answer. If you want something, you show up until the opportunity presents itself. There's an old saying, you have to be at the right place at the right time. That saying is completely inaccurate. You have to be in the right place all the time. Success is just like real estate. It's all about location. A lot of people, they think, oh, I really want this thing, but they don't put themselves out there. They're not in the place where that thing happens. If you want to be successful at whatever it is you want to be successful at, where are the locations where that success happens? And even if you go there and it doesn't work, NBC for me, many places for me throughout my life, I've tried things, stand-up comedy. I've tried to go to different clubs, and sometimes it didn't work out. Sometimes I went there at midnight to get a spot in front of 3 audience members, and the audience members left before I could get up there. But then I went back at midnight the night after, and the night after, and the night after, until I eventually did get on stage in front of 3 audience members. A lot of people run at that point. They say, well, what's the point of this? But I knew that location and those 3 audience members could turn into 10 audience members, could turn into 100 audience members, could turn into me getting passed at the club. And that's exactly what happened. Just like I knew every call I made was just one call closer to actually getting a job there. That's the way it works. My stepson says this all the time. He's a big sports fan, and he's right. You miss 1,000% of the shots you don't take. And I think that came from Wayne Gretzky, and I'm probably massacring it. But if you look, how many shots has Michael Jordan missed throughout his life? How many times has Tom Brady thrown an incomplete pass? You don't throw the touchdown without throwing the incomplete passes first. You have to show up at the right location and be willing to put yourself out there. And I think so many people are unwilling to take a chance. They're too afraid that if they take a chance and it fails, that they're a failure. Goes back to what I've been saying in all these podcasts, which is they're not worthy, they're not good enough, they don't have a purpose, they're not loved. All of these core emotional needs start to pop up. But you have to believe that internally you are worthy and you are enough and that you are okay. And that is how you show up in the first place. Because if you don't show up, You can't expect the one time you show up that you're going to be in the right place at the right time, because you probably weren't ready to be in the right place at the right time. Being in the right place at the right time takes readiness and taking advantage of your opportunities and creating opportunities. So you can always look at, if this person had this and that's how they became successful, or that person had that. When I wanted to become a professional baseball player as a young kid, I knew I needed to work out. But we didn't have a lot of money, so we couldn't go to the gym. I mean, we couldn't afford. I wasn't going to be like Rocky and try to tow a mule or whatever he does in those movies. I had to actually come up with a system that would allow me to get better at baseball and stronger. So my dad built weights, and this is true. This is crazy. He worked in a factory, and he took the old, worn-out iron wrought wheels that would be gears for these machines once they discarded them, and he weighed them and wrote in chalk on the sides of these weights, these wheels, how much each wheel weighed. I remember the big wheels weighed 56 pounds each, and then he made a bar that was thin enough to go through the holes of these wheels, and that is how I learned to work out. I was working out with factory wheels. That's even crazier than pulling a mule in the Rocky movies. And I remember when I went to middle school, I was in 8th grade, and I'd been working out for a while already at that point, and my gym teacher said to me, "How much can you bench press?" And I said, about 2.5 wheels. I didn't know that everybody wasn't working out with wheels. So that's a good example of finding a way to create your opportunities. You don't always have to wait for the opportunity to present itself. Look for a way through it. Look for a way in. Even if in the job that you are in, if you're looking for a promotion or you're looking for growth, what is it that you can do, that you can offer up, even if it's not something that's being assigned to you? How can you find a way to make the company more efficient, to make the company more successful? Or if you're an entrepreneur, how are you spending your time? Are you spending your time doing things that you want, or are you spending your time doing things that are going to make you more successful and make the company grow faster? That is about being in the right place at the right time all the time. That is about location, location, location. And remember, when things go against you, don't freak out. Adversity equals growth. It always has. My wife and I went on this amazing wine tour right after we got married. And it was this little place, and this guy was so great, this sommelier. And he was talking to us about the grapes. And he said, the grapes that go through the harshest, most difficult droughts and get no water, they make for the best wines. They have the most flavor. And isn't that true about life when you think about it? Don't we grow the same way? Don't you feel that? Like when you've gone through some of the toughest things, haven't you come out of it stronger? It certainly is the case for me. I know that's the case when I went through my health crisis and I got diagnosed with a lung condition, and I was told that, I probably wasn't going to have a very good life. I learned to eat healthier. I lost 25 pounds. I became a runner. And now I am, for the first time in my life, not on asthma medication. Since I was 3, I've been on asthma medication. And now for about 3 or 4 years, I am on 0 asthma medication. So I became stronger and healthier because of a diagnosis that scared me into becoming stronger and healthier. Sometimes you just need the pain to be so significant that it can push you forward. Because when we're too comfortable, we don't move. We're just like, okay, this is pretty good. I'm just going to stay in this spot. But when you face discomfort, it pushes you to the light. It pushes you to actually figure out what it is that you want in life. So you're not just going along for the ride. So you need to look at the adversity that you face as an opportunity. You need to look at the stop sign that you face as a potential for a solution, for a way around. You don't always have to stop when you see a stop sign. You have to figure out, is there a way through this? And, even in coaching, I always say there's 3 different types of obstacles that people face. And there's probably more, but these are the 3 that I see over and over again. The first obstacle I call the step stool. And the reason I call it the step stool is You don't need a massive amount of resources to get over this one. You just need a little step stool. It could be taking a class, learning something that you don't know. It could be calling somebody that's done it before and asking them how they get around this obstacle or through it. It could be just looking at it a little bit differently than you have in the past, but you're looking at it like a mountain, but really it's just a little obstacle and you just need a step stool to get over it. The next obstacle is called the wall. The wall is the teacher. So the wall, somebody who wants to work hard thinks they can just pound through the wall over and over again, just pound through and the wall will come crashing down. But they don't. They just keep hitting the same thing over and over again. And the wall, you have to read what's on the wall. You have to learn the lesson, and then the obstacle will just dissolve. And the third obstacle that I see quite often is called the perfectionist. This is probably the most common. This is the one where we put our own obstacles in the way. So you want to write a book, but you have to read 10 books before you write the book. You want to get in shape, but you got to get the perfect diet before you even go to the gym. So look at the obstacle and say, what type of obstacle am I facing? And understand that every single obstacle you face is just an opportunity to get better. That's all it is. Second chances are real. I went to 30 Rock thinking I was going to, wondering whether or not my dad could get me a job at the factory. That's how quickly you can lose your confidence and get crushed. Then 5 minutes later, somebody invited me back in to be an audience member at Conan O'Brien. And a half an hour after that, I was dancing with Conan O'Brien while Max Weinberg was playing. That is how life is. It can shift, but it only shifts when you put yourself in the right location at the right time. So remember, location, location, location. If you want to find love, what location do you need to be in? Do you need to be at home on the phone complaining about love? Do you need to be watching Love is Blind and making fun of all the people on that show or begrudging somebody? Do you need to be stalking your ex? Is that the location? Or is the location being out on dates? Is the location putting time into your profile? Is the location figuring out what you need? Is the location getting yourself into the right shape so when you meet the right person, you're going to be right for them as well? Location is everything and anything that you want to do in life. If you want to lose weight, what's the right location? Is it sitting at home reading a book about losing weight? Or is it going to the gym? Is it reading exercise books? Is it cooking healthy foods? If you want to be wealthy, is the right location binging Netflix during the day because you're overwhelmed? Or is the right location bearing down and coming up with a plan and a map so that you can figure out how to move forward? Is the right location actually assessing what you've done in the past to figure out what worked and what didn't, and then putting forth a new plan? Location is not just physical, it's also mindset. You have to be in the right place mentally as well as physically. Put yourself in the right location. Spend your time wisely. Don't waste your life being in the wrong location and expecting that the one time you happen to be in the right location, everything just worked out. I hope you like this episode. I love doing these. And put yourself in the right location. Just remember that. Until next time, I'll see you later. This is Living Rich Syrup.